Former UK Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson has used a resignation speech to launch a stinging attack on Prime Minister May's Brexit strategy. Now, speaking in the Commons, Johnson warned MPs that they needed to, quote, save Brexit. Johnson criticized Prime Minister May's strategy, saying she had allowed the Irish border problem to dominate the Brexit debate. May will head to the Irish border today for a two-day visit to address concerns over the issue. And live in London with the latest is your news correspondent, Vincent McAviney. Vincent, many have expected Boris Johnson to use this speech to, in fact, topple May, but that didn't happen, did it? Were people surprised?
Good morning, Tessa. Well, it was a bit like the big summer blockbuster movie. Lots of hype, lots of promotion, people expecting some big action. But in the end, it was a bit of a letdown for the audiences. Boris Johnson has been very quiet since he sent that stinging resignation letter last week, even hiring a photographer to film the moment that he signed it. Then he had that strange triple endorsement from President Trump. Rumours he was on manoeuvres, and then yesterday he even sat in the seat where Geoffrey Howe gave his resignation speech in 1990, which helped to topple Margaret Thatcher. So we all thought, here we go, a leadership challenge, but in the end, Boris seems to have bottled it. This was a very unusual speech for him. It didn't have the usual bombast and flourishes. There were no jokes. He did heavily criticise the Prime Minister's Brexit plan, but he didn't actually criticise her. He, in fact, praised her, saying she had been courageous and resilient during negotiations. Lots of people surprised at that, to the point where there are even calls in the chamber from MPs of, was that it?
Yeah, indeed. Very interesting. I wonder what he's up to next. Now, Theresa May, we know that she's heading to the Northern Irish border, Northern Ireland today. And we know that the Irish border, this is really a sticking point in Brexit. What progress still needs to be made on this point?
Well, the government is trying to get on with business today after a difficult few days. Dominic Raab is heading to Brussels for the first time as the new Brexit secretary, and Theresa May is heading to Northern Ireland for a two-day visit. Now, Northern Ireland and the border with the Republic of Ireland has been a real sticking point during these negotiations so far. And there's been a lot of criticism of the Prime Minister and the previous Secretary for Brexit, David Davis, for not actually going to Northern Ireland to see the border, to speak to people there about it. Now, I spoke to Dr. Simon Usherwood, who is from the University of Surrey's Politics Department. Here's what he had to say about the government's treatment of this issue so far.
The degree to which there is a presumption that they know better in London than they do in Belfast is, I think, a complicating factor in this negotiation, and certainly in terms of trying to unblock that within the Article 50 process has been a very difficult process, partly because there's that degree of ignorance about the scope of the issue, and also the difficulty in resolving it through negotiation.
Now, the Irish Prime Minister has been very firm on this issue so far, getting that backstop from Theresa May during the negotiations about not having a border. And there has been criticism of the British government for not really understanding the implications. This is a 300-mile border with around 270 crossing points where people move freely day to day. And there's a real huge historical significance to it. So Theresa May needs to go speak to locals and businesses and to politicians who are still deadlocked as their assembly there isn't sitting. She needs to get a better understanding of it, and we're expecting a speech from her. And this is all part of a summer where she really now needs to sell her Brexit plans to the country and not just MPs here in Westminster.